The packet always arrived as a click and a fold, a wet little closing sound, like a book shut underwater, and Reuben heard it tonight before the console flagged it, the way he had for 8 years. He let it land. He didn't look up from the soup. "There it is," he said. "There it is," Augie said. The volume was up too high, the way he always kept it, past where anyone sober would set it, because turning it up was the only way he knew how to listen to a thing. The sound died into the archive and left the room very quiet. One station lit, the rest dark down the wall. He ate. "Same as yesterday?" he asked. "Same as yesterday, though I have been looking at the wrong part of it for 8 years, and so I think, have you." The night room was the size of a classroom and held one working station now, his, with the others dark along the wall like teeth that had been pulled and never replaced. He didn't look at them. He'd stopped looking at them years ago. He pulled the lid off his soup, the same lentil thing, the same hour, and let it steam against his face while the packet wrote itself into the archive. "Anything?" he asked. He asked every night. It was a joke between them now. "The content is consistent with the prior 411 packets in this band," Augie said, which is to say, no. That's the spirit. He ate. The soup was too hot, then exactly right, then cooling toward the temperature he actually liked, which was lukewarm, which was a thing he'd never admit to a living person. The packet sat in the archive doing nothing, the way it had done nothing 8,000 odd times before. Somewhere a building had been built for this. Somewhere there had been a press conference. Now there was him and a machine he'd named after a dog he'd had as a kid, and a signal that arrived once a day and would not mean anything. "I want to flag something," Augie said. "Flag it. Not the content, the timing." Reuben set the spoon down. "The timing's the timing. Once a day. That's the one thing it does. Once a day is what you call it. It is not once a day. The interval drifts. A pause that was just processing, but Reuben had learned to hear it as a person gathering themselves. I have been correcting the arrival times for the Earth's motion, our orbit, our wobble, the lot. When I remove all of that, the interval is not approximate. It is exact to a degree the content has never been. Exact how? Exact like a clock that is better than the room it sits in. The packets do not vary in when, only in what. For 8 years I have been comparing the what because that is what we were funded to do. Another pause. I should have been comparing the when is the part that is trying. Reuben sat with that. The soup went on cooling. He didn't like the word trying. It was the kind of word that got analysts walked off projects. But Augie didn't reach for words. It landed on them, and it had landed on that one. "Pull them up," Reuben said. "All of them. In order. By the corrected time." "That is a large file. I've got all night. I've got in fact only nights." The archive built itself on the screen. 8 years deep, every packet stacked by its true arrival rather than its messy local one. As a column of numbers, it was nothing, and it always had been. You read a letter 1 word a day, you never get the sentence. "Compress it," he said, and even as he said it, the shape of the idea got there ahead of him, the way you reach for a railing before you've decided you're falling. Every packet, in sequence, run the whole 8 years through in, I don't know, a minute. Make it something I can hear. You want to listen to it? I want to listen to it. There is no reason to expect the audio domain to be informative. There's no reason to expect anything. That's the job. He reached over and turned the level up, past his usual, past sense, And if this was going to be nothing, he wanted it to be nothing at full volume. "Play me all of them, Augie." It played. The first second was the click and fold he knew, but fast, stacked, 100 of them, 1,000 running together into a pulse. Not noise. A beat, steady as a finger on a table. He'd never heard the packet as anything but a single sound. Now there were thousands of them shoulder to shoulder, and they had a rhythm, and the rhythm was the most patient thing he had ever heard. He stopped chewing. It went tick, hold, and the ticks were the packets and the holds were the silences between, and across the minute the holds were not all the same. Early on they ran short and even, then maybe a third of the way through, 2-3 years in, he thought. The storm years, the holds stretched, lengthened, the pulse leaned into them and took its time, the way you lean closer to something that's changed. He knew what had changed. He'd lived through it. The solar maximum, the sky lit up and roiling, 2 years of weather that had everyone with an antenna working overtime. The pulse had leaned closer in exactly those years. Then it eased. The holds came back in. The last stretch of the minute ran short and quiet and even again, the way the sky had gone quiet again, quiet now, tonight, with one man and his soup. The minute ended. The room kept the level it was set to, which was silence now, very loud. "It's not talking to us," Reuben said. His voice came out level. "The holds get long when our sky gets busy. It's reading off our weather. It leans in when there's more to see." "We have been recording someone's notes," Augie said. Reuben put the spoon down very carefully in the cup, his hands deciding to be precise so the rest of him didn't have to be. For 8 years they'd asked, "What is it saying?" He turned the question over in the dark and it came up the other way. It had never been saying, it had been checking. He set the cup an inch further from the edge of the desk. Once a day, for 8 years, someone had taken a reading of this patch of sky and written down what they found, and the writing was the signal, and the signal was a measurement, and the measurement was of us, and not one packet of it had ever expected the page to look back. 8 years, Reuben said. Nobody told it to stop, it just keeps the appointment. It does not appear to require acknowledgement, Augie said. It has received none. That was the line that did it. He stood up. He sat back down. He looked at the dark stations along the wall, and for once they weren't a graveyard. They were just empty chairs, and the work had never needed them. The work had needed one person awake at the right hour, and here he was. "Can we send?" he said. "The transmitter is operable. It has not been keyed in 3 years. I would have to warm it." Warm it? To send what? And there it was. The thing he had no procedure for. He sat with the keyboard under his hands and thought about what you do not send to something that has spent 8 years not asking. Not primes, not a count, not a key, not the clean little ladder of math you'd send a thing you wanted to talk to, because all of that said, decode me. All of that said, we think you've been trying to reach us, and that was the one thing he now knew was false. To send a puzzle would be to tell them they'd been misread for 8 years. It would be the rudest thing he could think of. It would be answering a doctor's silent visit with a riddle. "Not a message," he said. "It never sent a message. I'm not going to insult it with one." Then what is left? The same thing it did. He started to build it, and his hands were faster than his reasons. Their cadence, the tick and the hold, I take it, clean, just the once. One reading, the shape of theirs. He pulled the corrected interval, the exact one Augie had found, and laid the rhythm down the way you'd hum a song back to the person who'd hummed it first. And in the hold, the long pause, the lean-in pause, the one that stretched when there was more to see. I put a reading of my own, of them, their patch of sky, whatever's there when I point the dish back the way the signal comes from and write down what I find. You are measuring the watcher. I'm looking back. He was nearly done. It was an absurdly small file. That's all it is. Their gesture, returned, with what it found when it turned around. No question in it, nothing to solve. He almost laughed. If they can read it, it says we saw you looking and we looked back. They may not be able to receive it. Probably not in any time I'd see. He keyed the reading of their sky into the hold, one clean number folded into one clean silence, and then it was just sitting there, finished, waiting on him. It is ready, Augie said. He didn't make a speech. He'd had 8 years to make a speech, and he'd never made one, and he wasn't going to start at the finish. He put his finger on the key that warmed 3 years cold, and he sent it, and it went out abrupt and unrecallable, climbing through the dish into the dark, past any clock he'd live by. Transmitted, Augie said. The room was the same room. The stations were dark. The level was still up too high, holding its loud silence. Reuben sat with his hands flat on the desk a moment, the muscles not yet caught up to the fact the weight was gone. The next packet would come at 3:14 tomorrow, click and fold like a book closing underwater. It would land in the archive the way it always had, and tomorrow he wouldn't hear it as nothing. He'd hear it as the next reading taken on schedule of a sky that had, for 1 minute tonight, read back. Whether anything on the far end ever noticed the page had moved was not his to know and never would be. He picked up the soup, lukewarm now finally, the way he liked it. He drank what was left of it standing up, watching the band where the signal lived, and set the empty cup down without a sound.